I'm using trash, simple tools, and no technology to make handmade bathroom miniatures from scratch. Up first, I'm making over this mystery round piece and this wooden cap that's meant for filling screw holes on furniture. I sanded the wooden circle so it's a better size for a 1/12 scale soap dish. I made it thinner and sanded 2 of the sides so it's an oval. I attached some weak-ass double-sided scotch tape to a popsicle stick so I can coat my soon-to-be soap dish and screw cap in wood glue. I'm coating both pieces with wood glue to fill in any of the grain and inconsistencies so they look like nice smooth stone pieces. I recently showed you how to paint faux Carrara marble, so I'm trying to branch out here and trying pink marble. I replaced the tape with double-sided flooring tape and added a white base coat. While the paint is still wet, I'm adding a vein of pink. I'm feathering the line with some more white paint. I think this looks pretty good, but I chickened out and switched to classic marble for the soap dish. I repeated these steps with black paint to make Carrara marble. Since the furniture cap was first coated in wood glue, it was easy to wipe away the pink paint and repaint it. I'll link a previous video where I go into more detail about creating this marble effect. This time, for more warmth and realism, I added some brown paint around the black and then added tiny touches of gold for shimmer. To make them super shiny and look more like marble, I'm completely coating them with diamond glaze. I broke the top off my bottle, so my diamond glaze is a bit thicker than normal, but it still works really well to give these a nice resin-like finish. Diamond glaze isn't adhesive, so I'm loosening these pieces so they don't dry to the stick. To make my soap, I'm using a bit of this foam, which is meant for insulating outlets. I covered all the outlets and light switches in my house to save on heating costs and was left with a bunch of the scrap foam. This little piece right here looks like a nice bar of soap to me. The soap is a bit oversized for my dish, so I'm cutting some off the top and side. The bar of soap is really flat across the top, so I'm creating a small divot for dimension. My 2-second bar of soap is done after a coat of Mod Podge. Now I'm making a soap pump bottle, starting with this Q-tip. First, I cut the head off. I'm cutting 2 shallow lines into the Q-tip all the way around. The lines are hard to see right now, but you'll see them as I'm peeling the extra paper layers away. Now I have a nice thin stick sitting on top of a bigger diameter piece of Q-tip. I'm coating the entire thing with wood glue so I can make it stronger, smooth, and so I can add this triangle of paper to the top. This is free cardstock I got from packaging. I added another coat of wood glue to the entire thing and painted it white once it was dry. To make the body of my bottle, I'm digging through my collection of caps. I'm ditching the lower portion of this cap, but I'll probably use this weird little piece in some other project someday. This cap will be getting a paint job, but before I do any of that, I'm using my pin vise to make a tiny hole at the top. I'm using one of my scrap pieces of pin I keep in a mechanic's dish to add to the hole. I added a tiny bit of wood glue to the pin and gave the cap a faux marble paint job. This little pin is insurance to keep our Q-tip top from popping off. The white is a bit boring, so I painted it black for more contrast. All of these projects were inspired by this film canister my boyfriend found during a remodel. Normal people would see trash, but I saw a hamper with a lid. I'm making some woven faux wicker magic happen using some 10-count tapestry canvas I got from Etsy. I'm cutting out a piece of canvas that'll wrap around the canister. I don't want to see the black plastic through the tapestry, so I'm painting it. It's important to get perfect coverage. Just kidding, I'm slapping on the fastest coat just so there's less contrast between the tapestry canvas and this black background. While I have my paint out, I'm also painting the lid and this random wooden piece I'm turning into a tissue box. There are some scuffs and dinks in the paint, but it's good enough, which is the trademark for my channel. I'll be gluing the tapestry canvas to itself anyway, so it doesn't need to stick to the plastic. I used a combination of Beacon 3-in-1 and some extra wood glue right along the seam. To cover the cap, I cut out a circle. The body of the film canister was super smooth, but the cap has some texture, so the paint stuck a lot better. I'm spreading out wood glue in a thin layer to add the tapestry canvas directly to the cap. This will hold it nicely, and I'm pressing it in place to make sure it's in full contact. I made the circle slightly too big so I can cut away the excess to get a nice tight fit. I feel like I'm trolling myself by keeping these extremely dull scissors right near my desk. I used just some more wood glue to add a strip around the edges and used my small pair of sharp scissors to clean it up. For the tissue box, I added wood glue to one side. I'm pressing a scrap of tapestry canvas in place and cutting away the excess. The square piece will make up the top and all 4 sides will be covered by a longer strip. Before I put my canvas away, I'm making a basket for atop the toilet or countertop. I'm using a medium-sized popsicle stick or tongue depressor to make this. I added a small bit of hot glue to get the wrap started and used the Beacon 3-in-1 to wrap the rest. There was a teeny bit of excess at the bottom that I nearly cut off, but instead I'm coating the entire underside with wood glue. Once this dries, I know the tapestry canvas will never come off this thin piece of popsicle stick. I'd like to add some ribbon for texture and beautification, but this one's a bit pale. I previously colored this ribbon blue to use to wrap gifts, but this time I'm making it darker gold. This is the deeper, richer color gold, and this is the original really pale gold that looks a little bit white. To achieve this darker color, I coated the front and back of the ribbon in watered down Waverly Antique Wax. Now that my ribbon is dry, I'm tying a simple bow. As I'm demonstrating here, tying a tiny bow can be pretty tricky, so you're better off making larger loops and pulling the tails to make each of the loops small. I made my little bow and now I'm cutting each of the tails to the same length. I'm attaching my ribbon to another piece of ribbon and I made sure the seam lined up with the seam on the back of the hamper. I'm attaching the bow with Beacon 3-in-1, which is very similar to Fabri-Tac. Using more of the beacon glue, I'm twisting the ribbon so it has this pretty spiral effect. I think this looks pretty damn cute. I cut that same ribbon in half lengthwise to add teeny tiny bows to the basket and the tissue box. To make my mini tissues, I'm cutting off a piece of tissue paper. To give my tissue some movement, I'm making some accordion folds and holding it together with white glue. I trimmed the dried glue across the bottom and attached it to the top of the box. Just think of how quickly and easily this came together. To fill the basket, I used more of the white insulating foam to make soap, but they're a bit too short to be seen over the edge. I'm adding some popsicle stick using museum wax so I can remove this later if I'd like to. The little bits of wood will prop up my soap so you can see it over the edge of the basket. To take up some more room, I'm cutting this plastic pipette. I went to a wedding that was serving boozy cupcakes and I walked around collecting these from the table so I could reuse them in miniature making. I cut the domed end off with some scissors. I'm using this paintbrush handle as a backer to cut this with my craft knife. I cut along one of the seams so I can overlap these ends with Fabri-Tac glue to make this smaller. Nothing really goes to waste around here, so I'm using one of these Q-tip ends to make tiny cotton balls. I'm starting by pulling the fibers and cutting little pieces. Even my dull pink scissors were up for this task. I'm dipping my fingers into some watered down white glue so the fibers will stick together but they won't be crusty and hard. I'm rolling the balls but not so tightly I crush all the air out of them. I added a paper bottom to my little glass jar and started dropping my cotton balls in. Some of these are too big, so I'm concentrating those toward the bottom and the inside. This nicely tricks the eye into thinking they're all in scale. To make a lid for my cotton ball jar, I'm digging around in my stash of buttons. I wanted to find a button that's slightly bigger than the top of the jar so it doesn't fall in. This is a bit thick, so I'm sanding it down using my metal file. I added 2 layers of wood glue to the top of the button to fill the 4 holes and create a domed shape. I'm attaching a smaller button to the underside so it'll stay on top of the jar instead of just sliding right off. I considered painting this marble, but I thought that might be heavy and odd for a lid, so instead I'm coloring it with antique gold Rub and Buff. Rub and Buff is a wax that can ruin your paintbrushes, so I made a Q-tip fluffy by pulling on the fibers, and that's what I'm using to apply it. While I'm in the Rub and Buff mood, I'm pouring out some of these silica gel beads. The package says do not eat and throw away, but I'll only be listening to one of those suggestions. I have a small collection of these packets because I like to craft with the clear beads inside. This is the first time I've added color and I absolutely love how they look. I'm using them as handles on this marble trinket dish and the lid. I embellished this furniture cap trinket dish with a little tassel. To create this tassel, I made this weird tool using a popsicle stick and reinforced it to make it stronger and smoother with wood glue. To make the tiny tassel, I'm holding the thread with one finger and wrapping it a few times around my popsicle stick contraption. I'm holding the 2 loose ends of the string with the clip. I'm using another piece of thread to tie around my little bundle through the hole I made in the popsicle stick. I'm sliding the tassel off, and it's made easier because I added the wood glue to make this smoother. I added another piece of string to the small loop at the top of the tassel. I made this with orange thread because I thought it would be easier to paint it gold, but I should have used white or pale yellow. Nonetheless, these would look cute as curtain tiebacks or on the corners of pillows. I'm using more of the insulating foam and this cap as a template to make a miniature trash can. This tapestry canvas material is absolutely precious to me, so I'm using the smallest bit of scrap to cover the bottom of my trash can. This tiny piece of scrap is slightly too small, but I would rather have an undersized bottom of my can than use more of my precious material. I used the cap itself to cut a rectangular piece to make the trash can with. When I was wrapping it around the base I cut, I realized it was slightly too long, and I was pretty dramatic about it.
Oh my god, no!
This little piece won't go to waste, but here's the finished trash can filled with tissue paper and all the other minis. Consider joining my Patreon either as a free member or as a paying member for $3 a month. Make sure you watch this video next.